1987's Predator, after a very brief glimpse at a spaceship, opens on a shot of a military helicopter and manned boats in open waters. The chopper lands at a military installation on the shoreline of a forested jungle. American soldiers litter the landscape. There is a sense of ownership, of confidence. Predator ends with Arnold Schwarzenegger, bloodied and half-conscious, inside a similar military helicopter, gazing down at that jungle. The chopper flees into the distance as the movie fades to black. The hero has not triumphed. He has merely survived to escape, aware now only that the jungle is not his. There's an alien in there somewhere too, but the framing suggests that Predator is not fundamentally about the alien. It's about being hunted in a scenario where you had assumed yourself to be the hunter. The Vietnam parallel is most discussed in popular discourse about the movie, but Predator is as much, if not more, about America's shadow wars during the later eras of the Cold War, its violent incursions into Central America that to this day go unacknowledged. The alien is a funhouse mirror of that war without war, the inversion and dissolution of expected structures of battle. Dutch and his team are uncontested alphas right up until they are massacred like sheep by what, for a long time, appears to be nothing at all. There are many Predator spin-offs and sequels, most of which have been fundamentally about an alien, or multiple aliens. By and large, they have also been dull and silly. Danny Glover tries to elevate Predator 2's terrible script into something watchable, but can't quite get there. Alien vs. Predator is so unmemorable that all I can say is that I think it takes place in an Egyptian pyramid, which of course was built by aliens. Alien vs. Predator Requiem has one of the most execrable scenes I've ever seen in a film, and also, I guess, was shot exclusively between the hours of 1 and 4 a.m. 2010's Predators tried something interesting, but is failed by a script that's somehow both threadbare and overly convoluted. I never saw The Predator, I have heard it's pretty bad. Then, there's 2022's Prey. Prey opens on lingering shots of gorgeous landscapes, glistening rivers, unbothered wildlife, rolling hills and rustling grass. Then a painted strip of leather. Then our sleeping protagonist, who rises within a quiet village. This establishing is at once domestic and harmonious, a depiction of humans living within and among nature that would feel stereotypical or trite were it not so carefully rendered and performed. The movie ends within that same village. The protagonist has survived, but the message she brings back to her people is a warning, not a triumph. They will be hunted and must find a new home. What lingers in your mind is a line spoken by an elder earlier in the film, that a hunter's rite of passage is not about victory, but mere survival. The goal is not to look cool and kick ass, though one might do both. The goal is to carry on and allow families, traditions, and culture to outlast any personal ambitions. Prey, then, is the first Predator movie since 1987 to understand that the titular alien is a means to amplify metaphor, not an interesting or central character in itself. The use of Predator here, as opposed to some generic or novel sci-fi monster, is as deliberate and specific as the setting and characterization. The film comments on and examines the very idea of predator-prey relationships, distinctions and violations of natural order, colonization and power as its own justification. The historical parallels are not subtext, but text. The Predator, interestingly and importantly, is neither a natural force nor an encroaching colonialist presence, but instead both a reification and corruption of a Darwinian philosophy towards nature and violence. To overcome it is to overcome a fundamental misunderstanding of why and how one hunts and is hunted. Our hero's growth comes from her slow recognition of exactly this misunderstanding within herself. In other words, just as it is no accident that the 1987 movie is set in a Central America beset by American-Russian paramilitary mercenaries squabbling and murdering across someone else's land, it is no accident that this 2022 movie is set in a 1700s Comanche village on the cusp of being found and annihilated by French colonialists. The settings and the themes they would provoke without an alien in the movie are reinforced and interrogated by science fiction layering. This is what all the best science fiction does in one way or another, uses the most fantastical elements to raise up the most human ones, building a world in which we can see our own and be unsettled or enlightened by the sight. Before I watched Prey, I read many largely positive takes on the movie. One running theme, though, was that the premise of the movie alone was an obvious jackpot, even if you reduce the premise to what if Predator alien but in X time and Y place. The setting then is just the second half of a high-concept elevator pitch. Like every intellectual property will be best off doing a tour through existing and potential Assassin's Creed titles. It's not like this couldn't work. All of the ideas in this tweet could make for fun, even very good movies. But this line of thinking misplaces Prey's greatest strength, which is not that its setting is novel or surprising, but instead that it's thoughtfully chosen and utilized both aesthetically and thematically. Tidbits abound online about how much research and reference went into Prey's visual details, character dynamics, or rhythms of speech. Individual scenes or running plotlines constantly re-emphasize and interweave with the core Predator-Prey dynamic. I find myself constantly recalling Roger Ebert's line, "It's not what a movie is about, it's how it is about it." Prey isn't just a clever premise. It's a tightly crafted examination of all the thematic, historical, and cultural ramifications of its chosen space and time. Like Predator before it, Prey earns the context in which it dropped its muscle-heavy space monster, and therefore echoes far beyond the moments in which things are purely awesome or violent, though both movies are, to be clear, very awesome and very violent. I don't know that I'd say either movie is a masterpiece, though. They both have bits of clunky writing, some expected trappings of genre and convention weighing down plot beats or moments, but overall, Prey is as triumphant a version of yet another Predator movie as I could want. It does not merely strip mine for the nostalgia of its chosen IP, but instead builds a world, an idea, and a set of themes around that IP, justifying its inclusion in the canon while ensuring the movie stands entirely on its own and has something interesting to say. That's the takeaway I hope studios bring from this movie's success, that and to encourage more stories by and about Indigenous people. But I doubt the studios will do either. Instead, we probably will get the Xenomorph in Victorian London, or the Hellraiser folks showing up during the War of 1812 or something. Just another turn of the wheel that gave us Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, another lazy way to recycle intellectual properties ad nauseum. At least there's still hope, even in that bleak echo of the landscape that cinema has wandered for the better part of this millennium, that some projects have as much strength of vision and theme as Prey, and do justice to both genre and setting.